And right now, I think we're doing just a little bit of tap dancing. We're waiting for our third and final Javi. I sent, Raquel, did you get the email that I just sent?
I don't believe I did, but I can look right now.
Oh,
And
there is
oh,
Javi.
there it is.
Yay!
See it. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yay! Everybody is here. It's so great to see you guys. Thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. What's the point in writing a play if people don't show up to see it, right? Awesome, awesome. I'm looking at the clock. We've got 1:29. Let's tap dance for just another minute or so. I'm stating the obvious, but for those of you who are in the audience, of course, keep yourself muted and your camera turned off. And then at the end, when we do Q&A, we could turn those things back on. That could be fun. Or we could do questions in the chat, either one. Hot diggity dog diggity. Yeah. All right, here we go. I'm going to close down the chat just for me for right now. There we go. And Michael. There we go. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. It is 1:30. I am going to go ahead and I am going to read brief bios of you three. And I don't have everything that you've ever done in the bio. So if there's something important that you want to add when we're discussing what you do in terms of marketing, what have you, feel free to add that, okay? I'm going to start with Racquel. Okay, Racquel Lehrman is the founder and managing director of Theater Planners, her own theater production firm, which has served the LA theater scene for over 15 years. Doing everything from producing, consulting, marketing, and more, she loves to make productions a reality and help keep theater scene in LA alive and strong. She's also the owner of the Lounge Studio, the Lounge on Melrose, and manager of the Zephyr Theater. Hello, Racquel. We have Javi Moreno. He has written, directed, produced, designed, and performed for multiple theaters in LA, including the Independent Shakespeare Company, the Center Theater Group, Hero Theater, Cornerstone Theater, and Casa 0101. Javi is currently marketing director for the Latino Theater Company at the Los Angeles Theater Center and producing director for Company of Angels. Ximón Wood is a mixed American arts administrator, film photographer, writer, dancer, and visual artist. In Laramie, Wyoming, Ximón was a photographic conservator at the American Heritage Center and an administrative associate and art instructor at the Laramie Plains Civic Center. Since 2019, they have served as the PR and marketing manager for East West Players, the nation's longest-running Asian American theater company. Welcome to you all. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes,
All
thank you,
right.
Nancy.
This is so exciting. Let's go around and could everybody tell us what you do, what your job entails when it comes to marketing plays? So just for kicks, Javi, you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole lot, especially within the city of Los Angeles. A big portion of what I do is, try to get butts on those seats. But beyond that, LA is known as a city of new work, or not known, but it's a lot of new work. So trying to get audiences to come and see something that hasn't been reviewed yet, maybe has been workshopped. A lot of what I do with the companies that I work with, from graphic design, marketing the show, social media, website, all the way into sometimes being in the same show as an actor, to the ones I just did the program for. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of how it started. I did advertising and marketing for American Apparel for like 7 years, and I was in a play. And I was wondering like, well, how do we get audiences to come and see it, And so I just started, merging into that world and trying to use that same expertise, the same sort of stuff that I was doing there, grassroots, guerrilla marketing, and then social media came, and to, doing it there. I mean, with the companies that I work with, it's pretty much, it changes, right? Every show is different. And every season is different. And especially now, as we're seeing with COVID-19 pandemic, it's going to change even more than that. So I think there's like so many other different hats that I wear within the company, especially a BIPOC company that, resources and marketing budget is probably the smallest one. And I'm always trying to push for more. And especially for the productions that we do, it's new work. So it's always like the last thing, but it's the most urgent, right? To try to get, we need audiences to come see the show. So it's a multiple hats, I would say.
Okay, cool. And I'm glad you have on your LA Dodgers hat. Go Dodgers.
Yeah.
What a game last night.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Racquel, I'm going to switch over to you. Describe what you do and how it might be different or similar to what Javi does.
Ironic, very, very similar. So, because people hire me, I work predominantly with independent productions. I would say that's probably 99% of my business. Very similar to probably the group that's here. Playwrights who write original work have now this beautiful script, and then they go, now what? What do we do? So they come to me and my company produces it. But like I always say, I could produce a beautiful show, but if my mom and 6 of her friends come, who cares, right? We're not doing it for that. We're doing it for so many other reasons. So a large part of marketing is, I always say it's sort of, I always envision like a field. And we're really going around the field and we're watering the field. And then we go, oh, you know what? Something's growing over here. Let's keep watering it here. Because you know what? I've been, and it's just dead. And nothing is happening. And I'm doing the same seed over there, but maybe sunlight hits better over here. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of an analogy that I feel like I explain to my client. So often in the beginning, it's really throwing all the spaghetti on the wall and then seeing what sticks. And then whatever sticks, I go, great. I'm going to nourish this and try to get this to grow. Kind of going back to my plant reference, right? And then if it's just the weeds are growing and it's dying over there, we leave it alone because I don't need to. So yeah, it's very similar. Because every show I do is different budgets, different subjects, comedy, drama, again, different budgets, you really have to get creative. I think that there's always a baseline of stuff that I like to do, but I always say in theater, 1 + 1 never equals 2, meaning, I could do the same thing for one show that I do for another, and it doesn't translate. That's sort of the beauty of why I think we all love theater is you can't rinse and repeat. The beauty of what happens every night on stage and what happens with each individual show. So very similar. You just have to get creative for each show and figure out what sticks.
Excellent. Yeah. Your audio was breaking up just a little. 90% of the time it's okay. I don't have a solution for that, but I'll just keep you apprised of that.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to Ximón. Okay. And what do you do with East-West Players? Tell us.
As Javi and Racquel were both saying, a lot. There is, so I've been with EWP for the past 3 years. And so it's about to be 3 years. And it was definitely an adventure when I was able to start before the pandemic, and now within the confines and the sort of limitations, but also the expansion that we have to see through the pandemic. I've been on a deep learning experience about marketing and what brings people to every show. And as Racquel was saying, every show is completely different. Every audience is completely different. EWP, we do a wide breadth of things from straight plays to musicals. And I think the people, a lot of our audiences that have been with us for, maybe not all 65 or excuse me, all 56 years that we've been producing, but I think musicals are one of the things that people come to us majorly for. So, but that audience may not always translate to some of the newer works that we do, or or even now as we're, having to swim through the waters of digital theater. That has been such an interesting learning experience for myself, and I think my colleagues as well. What do I do on a day-to-day basis? I do a lot of, outreach and chatting with folks in terms of being able to get everything off the ground. And that includes the advertising, the programs, coordinating with publicists for PR, social media, and email marketing. And all of those things are involved and take a lot of holding together all of the sort of like different things that we want our audiences to be responding and responsive to. So, and then also just being able to be a part of all the different events that are happening on site as we are learning or beginning to bring back people into the space. So that is also a big part of what I do, is to be able to start communicating that we're still in this kind of hybrid area, but I'm mostly just excited to be able to start producing again in-house.
Cool.
Yeah.
Two things. I have a kind of a bullet point list I saw in an interview that you did. With your permission, I would love to share it with our audience here.
Sure. Yeah, that I think I saw that as it was briefly on screen, and yes, that that definitely encapsulates every single thing that I do on a everyday basis.
And Mona had a question that's germane to right now. Let me go grab the first one. By audience, does Ximón mean the subscription audience or beyond?
Audience, I mean, audience is such a broad term, but right, there's so many different things that fall under that umbrella. Right, for a traditional sort of professional theater company, we of course have subscribers. But audience is also what Racquel was getting at, is like there are different types of audiences that come in for different things, right? There's different things that people latch onto with whatever the work is. If you're able to find some folks via a channel that that you didn't know was biting for that play, biting for that work, they're part of your audience now, and you have to find ways to cultivate them longer and longer term, get them to continue to bite for that kind of work that they're interested in. So I mean, every person that comes in is a potential subscriber. It's just a matter of being able to translate their interest into something that's part of either your mission or the work that you're producing, which should hopefully be together.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hit share screen. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on share. Okay, can you guys see this in the center?
Yes.
Okay.
Nancy, real quickly.
Yes.
Is this something that our audience can take a picture of now? Pull out their phones and take a picture of?
Ximón, do you feel comfortable with that? It's totally up to you.
Sure. And I also encourage y'all to go to our website, eastwestplayers.org, and you can see the entire interview that was done by my LA County Arts and Culture intern, Ishika Muchal, over the summer. She did a wonderful series of interviews with all of our staff. So if you're curious about how a small but mighty theater company like East West Players survives and thrives, you can see all the different roles that myself and my colleagues play in keeping us going. So I was one of, there's about 7 full-time staff members. So if you're curious, please go there, check out the blog. There's just really great input from everybody that I work with. So it's totally fine. These were the things that she listed as that I, told her, like, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Well, here you go.
Yes. Liaison with the press, media critics, shaping the audience experience, tracking sales, managing live streams, coordinating development and fundraisers, publicizing classes and programs, creating social media assets, defining and what do you think EWP stands for?
East West Players.
Yes!
Mm.
I thought I'd be silly. Okay. Serving as East West Players communicator via emails, designing graphics, newsletters, and the website, collaborating with their amazing intern, and updating the archive, digital photos, video, audio, and keeping them intact. So I am now going to stop share. But again, I just thought that was so mind-blowing that I wanted
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and not Javi's nodding because I feel like you're like, yeah, this is, and you touch on a little bit of that every single day, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And LA
So-
County interns are amazing.
They are. Shout out to every single one of them.
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah.
gems. They're great.
Yeah. I wanted to go on to some more specifics now. So, what do you guys think works best for marketing plays here in LA for smaller theaters? And to that point, can y'all tell some stories of when things went great and when things didn't go so great? And what lessons you've learned over the years to run a successful marketing campaign? Who would like to go first?
We're all thinking. We're like, what are those stories?
I have multiple stories. I can probably go on. I mean, they're very different. I mean, one of them, the three companies that I usually do marketing for, one of them is the Latino Theater Company at the LATC, Los Angeles Theater Center. And there's always a confusion, right? One is the building and one is the organization, the Latino Theater Company, and multiple theater companies come and perform there. Then there's Company of Angels that's been around for 60 years. And then the company that I perform and also support in my marketing efforts is the Independent Shakespeare Company, who puts on the Griffith Park Free Shakespeare Festival. And it's free, right? So it's always like, oh, I don't have to really do anything. But it's one of the hardest, right? Especially in LA, it's trying to bring people up to Griffith Park to come see Shakespeare. Play they've probably seen, but it's I heard in a marketing conference a while back, especially for the city of LA, and this was before the Sophie Stadium was even built, but they said you can fill every stadium in the city of LA, every theater, and you'll still have millions of people to come see your shows. But one of the experiences for Independent Shakespeare Company is someone was just hiking, right?
I hike there every Wednesday night, and I can see you guys performing.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Somebody was hiking the kid, and there was a performance, and he's just like, I was like, sit down, watch the show. I was ready to get going into the entrance. And he's like, no, this is not for me. Right. And it's like, oh no, this is exactly for you. You know, it's like, what? It's like, yeah, no, they're going to kick me out. I was like, no, trust me, sit down. And it's one of my favorite stories because the following weekend, he was having like a teenager picnic with, his like girlfriend. They had sodas, chips, and they were watching a play, right? And this is, someone like me that grew up in LA, who hardly ever saw myself on stage, to the plays that I would see. And from that experience, I just started, connecting it to a lot of, like I was mentioning earlier, the city of LA does a lot of new work. And I'm always pushing the actors, playwrights, directors, it's friends and family, especially now with social media, is start there and then it'll expand into more people, right? And that's one experience. And then so this kid now is just a theater goer, goes and just comes to see plays, and it's easy as that, right? That's like a wonderful experience. I can't say one of them that would just be like a negative experience is just someone that said, oh, we don't need social media, forget, like this is recent, that we don't need anything. This play is well known. And then not having an audience because, it's like, no, they don't want to do postcards. No, we don't want to waste. And it's as, both Racquel and Ximón were mentioning, there's, I like hearing the play, reading the play, figuring out what this is about. And every show with every theater is going to have a different a different audience. And I think that's, which is why I like that this, what's it called? Pandemonia? No, forgot what the conference festival.
Pandramatica.
Yeah, because we're connecting the artist. I love when LA Stage Alliance did LA Stage Day, because we all got together and connected, and how, you know, resources are out there, what we're doing, what's working, what's not working, because we don't really get to do that. You know, how did you bring those audiences to your theater? So I think there's always, I don't think there's a wrong way of doing it. You know, we once did one where we were just outside on the streets, you know, come on in at the LATC, old school, right? People were like, what is this place? And, you know, there's just promoting an e-blast, flyers, and all this type of stuff. So it's always, for me, it's always in the midst that you can have someone that thinks that the show is not for them, and then it turns out that it is.
So would you say, going back to that first instance of the guy you ran into at Griffith Park, and then you can take that lesson broader, if you can make somebody understand this is for you and connect to them personally. Right,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it made me realize, it made me connect to myself. I used to think, oh, well, Shakespeare's not for me. Well, especially like the way the LAUSD system was teaching it was just like reading it, right? And now I'm like performing it. But just like, wow, I'm like, what's the, you know, when people come and see theater here, they're like, oh, it's in this little theater. I thought it was going to be in this big theater, right? And then they end up coming out and it's like, wow, this was amazing. And it's like these little connections, because they don't think, right? Like, if we're a lot of us that are, you know, playwrights or actors, and our friends are, you know, they're like, what do you do in the weekends? It's like, yeah, we're not playing for fun, you know, this is a career choice. But it's I think it's learning from those experiences that there's people out there that still don't connect. I mean, at Griffith Park, I want to say about 7 out of 10 people are first-time theater goers, or first-time people seeing Shakespeare. And that's really surprising, you know, being the entertainment capital here in Los Angeles, and access to the arts. And I think there's a lot of that, that, you know, how do we, there's still a big pocket of people that still don't go to the theater here in LA. How do we make it so that it's, you know, when you're an adult and you still haven't seen a play, how do we get there? And I think we're able to do it more now. So with social media, I think we were able to, I mean, last year we reached a lot of new people across the country with virtual programming. And so we learned a lot from that too. It's like, okay, so maybe there's something there that we can do different for once we were able to go back to on-site shows.
Okay. Ximón, do you have some stories? What's worked? What hasn't worked? How have you reached people?
Yeah, I think, I mean, every play is different. And again, as going back to saying what we've all said, some things work that don't work for others. Some things will always work depending on how you approach them, right? So, and I definitely was thinking about our digital programming space that we've all kind of been forced to be in for a while. And we've learned a lot in this last, 2-ish years about producing online, that I think for me, which has been my majority of time at the at East West Players. So I'll speak a little bit to that in this last season of producing that we've been through. We've had one of our first productions was a piece by Christina Wong that was brand new. She produced this with formerly incarcerated folks and family members of incarcerated folks in the Asian American community. And it was those folks were part of the performance and telling their stories. She was mainly there to just, she devised it with them and created it and grew it. And it was very new, very radical, very, and and very much on Zoom. It was all just conducted on Zoom with talkbacks and everything like that. Everything was on Zoom as a whole piece. But it was and it was only 2 nights, and it was very well attended. And it was also a pay what you can performance. And it was also one of our higher grossing pieces of this digital season. So I think if you kind of take the magic of something that is very like, you can only see it now and have that whole kind of like scarcity principle around it. If it's something that you're, it's brand new, you can only see it once. But you're welcome. Everyone is welcome to just sort of like give into the experience what they can. So if it's nothing, if it's $100, if it's, make that a part of of something new that you're producing, right? Like there's got to be a way for you to meet your audience where they are. And then also, who do you want to actually see in the seat? So I think we also talked about, you get your friends and family. And depending on where you're producing, they probably won't fill out every single seat in the space. Or if you're on Zoom or if on a digital platform, do you have a goal? Do you have, do you only want 25 people to show up, or do you want like 1,000, right? So keep those things in mind. I would say that if you have an open goal, as we all in the digital space, which is so weird. It's weird for me to think, instead of like, oh, I want all 240 seats at the David Henry Hwang Theater filled up versus, I don't know, how many folks can we, do we want to have tonight? That'd be great. So I think having that, just like, all right, you only have one weekend, you can pay whatever you want to show up. You can pay whatever this is worth to you, but also like, here are the things that you're going to see. Here's the stories that you're going to hear. Here's how you're going to be moved and changed by this experience. And that's also what I mean by who do you want to see in the audience, right? Like, you don't want to market your play and to just anybody, because not everybody may or may not be interested in that story. They may or may not be interested in whatever you're trying to talk about. That's not what's going to move them to either get out of the house and go to the theater, especially in LA where traffic is terrible, or a digital theater where now, you may not want to spend your Saturday night on a Zoom, unless it is like for someone that you care about, So, right. You have to kind of take all of those things into consideration. How do you bring the people into that space that are going to respond to your work, to respond to the themes in your work? And then also ask yourself what kind of groups or communities might respond to this work. How does that all make sense to bring in larger amounts of folks? So, classes, community groups, things like that.
Without staring at the ditch, as we say in mountain biking, do each of you have a story where in hindsight you looked back and you went, oh, that didn't work? And what was that lesson? Have you got any stories like that?
Probably.
Yeah. Sorry, Nancy, for some reason my video won't start.
I don't know.
The host stopped it. Oh, wait, here we go. No.
Maybe the host is, yay, welcome back. Wait, before we get to those stories, Racquel, were you able to listen? Did you have some thoughts of?
Again, very, very similar. I think, I'm old, I've been doing this a long time. And, in the 15 or 18 years that I've been doing it, 15 years ago, LA Times comes out, gives you a glowing review, and everybody just sat back and went, sold out house. Great. That's all it took, in my opinion. And that's what it was when I first started out. And now that's not the case anymore. Word of mouth is truly, it's very cliche, but you can't put a dollar amount on word of mouth. So now what's really interesting is that I find is I can have shows that get wonderful reviews. Nobody comes. One doesn't necessarily translate to the other anymore like it did 10 or 15 years ago. Just because Joe Critic says to go, they don't go. It's really multiple impressions concept is what it takes nowadays. We're so inundated with content. We are. There's so many shows that are opening. There's so many TV shows. There's so many things that catch our eye that what's going to get you up off the couch to sit in traffic and go to the show is hearing about it, review, checking out that e-blast that you just got that said, oh, okay, great. This is the show that I just about. And then probably 3 or 4 more other things before you finally go, okay, I got to check out this show that I've been hearing about. So for me, that's what I find sort of does the trick is, again, the multiple impressions in lots of different places, because it's never one thing that generally will get them in the door. Press plays a large role in the marketing and we sort of team up, but it's not just that amazing review from LA Weekly anymore, or, and all of that has changed. Press has obviously changed. LA Times isn't coming out like they used to. So anyway, for me, that's generally I start particularly with my masses. And when I say my masses, I mean my live event goers. And I say live event because it could be music, it could be theater goers, it could be a concert, anybody that will particularly get up off their couch where it's cozy and there's great Netflix content and will go out to an event. That's who I want to target. And that's where I start. And then I sort of tear it down and make it more specific as we get closer, layering in the press, layering in the people that will only buy discounted tickets, because there's that too. There are those people who will they know the show will be listed on discount ticketing sites and they're not going to buy it elsewhere. So how much do I dabble in that world? How much do I entice them? That's a large amount of people, and I want to be a part of that, right? And then specificity to the show. Is it a musical? So people who love music. Is it a show about loss or grief? And, do we target those people? But just because they're experiencing grief doesn't mean that they want to come see a theater show. So the two don't necessarily go hand in hand, but you have to start here. And then I just sort of trickle down, build my audiences from there. I also give a lot of incentive to casting crew, giving them codes to have them early, your greatest asset in the beginning, because there's never enough money to do what I call the kind of front end marketing that you need. You can't blast it out like you want. You have to almost wait until you have something to say. Reviews, word of mouth. Well, by then I need butts in seats. So that's where I begin to use my cast and crew. And again, give them that incentive to give me that front end marketing that I need. So.
Okay, cool. All right. But just briefly, again, and if you don't have a story, it's okay, but I just wondered if you guys had a story where something didn't go well and you learned a key lesson, an interesting story. You may not. And that's okay. I can move on.
I think something I've also learned in this pandemic and also just in general was listening to audience feedback in terms of how we approach the sort of like make time to see a digital theater piece space, because it's not an event in the way that we're used to. It's not a take time to go out, have a nice dinner, meet up with friends, plan all that out and go see a show type of thing. It's you're at home, it's a night in. It's completely different from the things that I think a lot of our, as Racquel was saying, the event goers, or even our, for us, it's our subscribers who sort of just like crafted a whole ritual out of going to our theater, right? So for me, for some of our less successful digital productions, it's taking the feedback of, we don't want to come these nights because this is actually the nights that we have to go. Now that things are opening up, it's the nights that you go out and do things. It's going back into society, instead of planning, that having them to take the time to stay in and watch a show to continue to support us. We don't, we'll try to do it on nights where it's like Sunday, Monday, nights where folks are actually like, I don't, I'm spending that time in because I got to go to work tomorrow or something like that, or taking into consideration that they have things in their lives that they, are often doing somewhere else. So, but I think audience feedback in general is the major takeaway from your bad shows, from your bad experiences that you have, is go through that and make sure that you are just every single like depressing point that's in there, you pull out and you apply it to a show in the future that is similar in content or event structure or something like that, that you are able to, you know, take that and change it, find a different avenue for either like presenting it to your audience or crafting that experience. And I would say, what was I gonna, a point there with that. Just because, yeah, we also had a season that the season as a whole, there was parts of it that our subscribers kind of pulled away from because there were things that they came to our theater for that we were not including in that season. And so for us, it's just taking that feedback, that criticism, and moving forward. And so the next time we may have to program our season in that way, we try to create either experiences or ways for them to buy a package that will be a lot more like the things that they're used to. Because your audience is usually pretty, you know, you might have different audiences for things, but they become kind of predictable. And especially when you have subscribers, you can kind of predict what they want and what they expect out of either your theater or your work as an artist, right? So if you're thinking more as a playwright or a director, like what kind of work that they come to see you for, what kind of experiences do they expect out of you? And if it's a departure, then, you know, you listen to their feedback and you respond as you do.
Cool.
Mhm.
Have you guys tried any non-traditional ways of reaching out to an audience? Educational panels, something that's way outside the box. Just curious.
Honestly, truthfully, probably not. If I had to really, you know, do we stretch outside of? Sure. But I think with the limited time, especially you have in small theater, no, I sort of feel like in theory, I'm being honest, you know, in theory, it sounds wonderful, but the end result doesn't give you what you need. So it's not where you sort of want to put your time and effort. I feel like you're sort of spinning wheels in dirt and you're not getting anywhere, to be completely frank. So typically, no.
Okay. Javi, anything way outside the box, non-traditional that y'all have tried?
I mean, I think like same as Raquel. I
Okay.
think we've tried it all, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
educational panels, partnering with organizations, and it's
Mhm.
like, okay, you know, like it works. It probably works better for the organization. It's more of that engagement or some foundation requirement, but it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it's like, it was great. We got together, and I think it's like, did we retain those audience members? Did they come back the next year? It's probably not, you know.
Okay, cool. Okay, this probably is going to be a Racquel question, but it's important for a lot of our folks that are on this today. If somebody is self-producing a play with your help, Racquel, what extra work are they going to have to do to market their play?
That's a good question. Obviously, again, that's probably 99% of my business. I mean, quite frankly, it let me try to say, yes, is it more challenging for any independent production? Absolutely. And I always say that because, you know, look, there's a reason I produce often I'll just say the Odyssey, for example, and I produce there often. There's a reason on all of our marketing materials, they're very specific about the font size, the wording, where we have to say this is a guest production at the Odyssey. Because obviously they produce their own material too, and they don't know how good or bad this rental is that I'm producing or somebody else's rent is producing, right? So the challenge is simply that, hey, we're not the Odyssey, we're not East West Players, we're not these companies that people know and typically have a very strong lineage of good stuff. So the challenge is it's hard to get butts in seats. Now it's really hard to get butts in seats because nobody knows you. But to be completely frank, to, I guess, suppose toot my horn, people know me. They know theater planners. It's the truth. There's a reason I have a mailing list of 15,000 that I've compiled over the years because, again, I'm old. I've been doing it a long time. That is why, that's a part of why you're paying me. Of course, I'm producing your entire show and so on and so forth, but you're sort of getting that built-in theater company within an independent world. So to be honest, there's not much more that I feel a playwright would have to do outside of course, rallying, their friends and family that they would want to invite, just like when they're producing in a theater company, they've gotten their work produced, they would want to invite their friends, their family, their colleagues, and spread the word of mouth. So truly, no, not anything more than you would on a, if East West Players or someone else picked up your work and said, we love this play. Quite frankly, the only difference is financial. When a client comes to me and is the playwright, they're the executive producer, so they're the ones that are funding it or finding the funding. So outside of it being produced somewhere, the model is actually very similar when coming to, let's say, my company, for example.
Do you coach people, playwrights, on how to build their own mailing list? Do you tell them that up front, look, you're going to have to start collecting email addresses and subscribe to Constant Contact so that you can let your audience know? Do you coach people through that?
Sure. But I think, to be honest, most people that come to me don't necessarily have that. Some are more seasoned than others.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that aren't and just happen to have a lovely play, and then they hand me the paper and go, what do we do now? I'm really, again, able to take that and write it. But yes, is there a time where we sit down and I say, here's where you need to branch off and you need to work over here and try to get these people to come in? Often too, it's not just audiences. When playwrights come to me, they go, Racquel, I want to get it published. I want agents to come see it. So there's many other reasons why particularly playwrights will come to me to produce their show. It's not obviously, look, it's not financial. Welcome to small theater. It's not for the mass amounts of butts and seats. It's that first step, which is part of why I always love what I do. I get to deliver the baby, and I will never tire of delivering the baby and being the one to deliver that first incarnation. So, getting it published by Sam French or Dramatist, getting an agent in the door so that way it can go somewhere. Often they want to get it published because it's something that would be done beautifully in schools and places where then financially they can get, royalties and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different ways to attack it. And that's a large part of my conversation when I take on a client. Why are you doing it? What do you want out of it? So there's not always one way. That's all.
Okay, cool. We're kind of broached on something, and so I'm going to ask the other folks as well. Should a self-producing, or even not self-producing, either way, should a playwright hire a publicist? And how do you find a publicist? How do you find one that's good, and how much do they charge? Do you guys know anything about publicists and their jobs?
Sorry, I know I just spoke, but I know a lot.
Okay.
No, I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I feel like Racquel probably has a lot of let me tell you, what do you need?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
I work with wonderful publicists, and it's funny, when we're going through the budget, clients often are like, well, that's a lot. And I'm like, you know what? If we're going to cut, it's not going to be in your publicist. That's just not where you want to cut. It's not. Cut back on your set, cut back on your lights, simplify a lot of other things. But that's not where you want to skimp. It's just not.
And could you define for our audience what a publicist is, how that's a little bit different than maybe a marketing person?
Sure. So marketing, as I always say, is paid and non-paid outreach and trying to get butts and seats through that. A publicist's job is to get reviewers to review the show and to get any advanced stories or articles, period, which thus in turn translates to butts and seats, because again, it's one of the many ways in which they go, oh, I just read an article about this in the LA Weekly, and then again, my friend, and then I saw the ad, right? So it's all of that. So it's one channel. So that is their number one focus. So we work closely together because now LA Times comes, they gives it a great review. As the person who's doing the marketing, I want to take those pull quotes. Best show I've seen in 2021. Give me that and let me ride with that and use it now on all of my tools that I'm going to have in my sandbox. So we work really closely together, but I can't do what they do and they're not going to do what I'm going to do. They're not going to place ads. They're not going to do e-blasts. They're not going to touch marketing in a paid or even sort of unpaid social media way. they're going to try to get reviewers to come in and review the show so the masses read it. You know, thousands of people get the New York Times, they read it, they buy a ticket because they like what they just read and they love this critic. So we work hand in hand. For me, do you want me to name publicists and prices? I feel like they would kill me if I did that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, we could talk up. There's quite a few out there working. So we work with Davidson Choi Publicity, and they do quite a few other theaters, Pasadena Playhouse, and a few others. Some of the larger companies have in-house publicists as well. So if you're producing at, say, CTG, they will take care of that for you. But I think also kind of piggybacking on what Racquel was saying, you know, maybe if you have, like, what are your goals with what you want to do in the press? So yes, if you're like hardcore, you really want that review from a certain media outlet, then it depends, right? Are you going to have the energy to go out there and pitch and continue pitching your play to them? You can ask for reviews, you can, but it just, the publicist will always have a better relationship probably than you will with whomever you're trying to pitch to get in, to come in to see your work. You definitely want to create an experience for them. So is that an opening, you know, is it an opening night experience? What kind of experience are you bringing them into? Are you making sure they have like a really great seat to see everything? If you know, how you treat your reviewers is pretty key to getting the kind of review that you may want. And of course, it's always a gamble, because if it's a reviewer that doesn't necessarily jive with your work, then you take that feedback and that's what you have. So I think you really, if you as a playwright or, you know, producing artist or any kind of performer, if there's a goal you have in mind in terms of who you want to see and give you that review of your work, you know, like if it's a major media, you will want to set the money aside for the publicist. If it's, you know, maybe someone who's more local or regional, that, you know, you won't have to like hound them constantly with pitch letters and requests for reviews, then you may be able to either, like work, you know, just send out that email and let it go. But it definitely, it's, you know, writers may not always be very extroverted to have to go out and do that. I know that especially as a marketing manager, it is a lot of work to be able to craft that relationship and continue to press and be like, please come, please come, please come, right?
Yeah.
And make sure they do that in a timely fashion so that review comes out and influences the rest of your run. Because you also can get a reviewer that comes in at the beginning and you don't see that review until way later in the run. So there's always a little bit of risk involved with that.
So do the theaters that Ximón and Javi that you work with, do you guys have publicists that you always work with? Do you have one on staff? Do you hire one? And second question, then do playwrights go ahead and hire their own publicist? Because I know in Hollywood sometimes a writer will just hire a publicist for themselves.
At the LATC, we used to hire, I think before me, they would hire, I think, a publicist for every production, and it was a little crazy. We now work with Lucy Pollock, who does a lot of theater in LA. And that's actually been really great for us because, again, it's those personal connections. They're making that personal pitch through email. And not only that, but it's, you know, with the LATC, we produce our own projects through the Latino Theater Company, but we're also producing other projects and then telling the history of the building, of the organization, and all these other events. And sometimes playwrights do come, you know, I say that if you are able to do it, you know, better, you know, you might have someone that has a direct connection to Fox. You know, we did that once for the Griffith Park Free Shakespeare Festival, you know, come say the weather on stage at Griffith Park, you know, it doesn't hurt, you know, because you get that little thing that then we as marketers can use on social media. Like, look at this article, look at this radio thing. We had a couple of well-known playwrights that had their agency has a publicist. So we kind of connected our publicist and their publicist, and they work together. You know, who do you know? Who do I know? And they were able to, you know, tag team and reach out. And then, you know, as Ximón was mentioning, you know, you're going to get reviews, but also one of the great things is that even if it's not reviews, you're gonna get those different hits, like an article, an
A
interview,
feature,
a Q&A.
Those are always great.
Yeah, and we're able to post, right? We're able to post little snippets of that instead of saying, come and see the play, 2 weeks left. We're able to post different types of content, right? Something cool about it. And I think it people like that more. I think I've seen it get more likes or more shares than opposed to just a production photo saying, 3 weeks left, stuff like that. I mean, that always helps.
Yeah, adding on to that, I'd say, right, if you're mindful about how your social media looks and interacts with your followers, features are wonderful, because features are the times when you sit down with an interviewer and you get into the nitty-gritty of what your play is about, what the message you're trying to convey. You can probably talk up all of your designers and things like that and all the work that's gone into that. And I think like that sometimes is a little bit more worth it than a review, just because it looks great on Facebook. It looks great on Twitter. Those are the things that like your followers will see, and that they can also just sort of follow the lead and find out more than just a still photo, which is always beautiful, but can get tiring after a while. If you don't have a ton of production photos, you don't want to give away too much in that kind of marketing. For those of us who work with like AEA, we can only do so much video promotion. Yeah, right. Like it's that you only get so much of that out, that kind of content out into the world. So features are just like, they're wonderful. That is definitely worth the price of, paying a publicist to go out and find the publications that will make sense for your work.
So it would be the publicist's job who's out there cultivating interviews.
Yes.
With the playwright.
Right.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
That's, again, you're paying for their relationships. I always say that. When you meet with a publicist, they can't guarantee anything. But what they can guarantee is that they're going to work hard, understand the concept of what they're pitching, and use their relationships, because that's really what you're paying for, to try to get those advanced features, stories, interviews, and then reviews. So, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I
was gonna add that Ximón mentioned about equity rules. I've dealt with a lot of playwrights who are like, oh, let's do a video like this, and it's like, oh, that's we're very limited.
Nope.
It's like hopefully one day changes. But as storytellers, as playwrights, it's like I think you can sometimes build those stories, right? It's like especially with a lot, you're writing new work. It's where was it, like telling the story of like, where was it produced? Where was it workshop? What's the theme? Like that we can use that to share that story. And I think that's what people love to see. I mean, like, people love to see the behind the scenes stuff. What inspired you this play? Because, we can do that in a Q&A, but by that, we're not going to use that Q&A for it's to push for shows. I think like if you're able to tell that story now of what inspired you, maybe it's in a 60-second video, what inspired you to write this play, why did you write this play, why this play now, stuff like that really helps. And then what I've seen is that the publicists might pick that up and share that, and then it gets picked up by a publication, or they share that video or something like that.
Content.
Yeah.
Capital C.
Cool. Let's shift to advertising. Talk to me about advertising strategies that you guys have used. Do you advertise? Do you go for major newspapers, community papers? Do you ever advertise on Facebook? I'm just throwing ideas out there. Talk to me.
Again, when I first started, it was like print, and more print ads. And now I don't think I've done a print ad in a really, really long time, me personally. Mainly just because budget's small and nobody is picking up that paper. Look, when I started again 18 years ago, you wanted that big full half-page ad in LA Weekly, and that was money. For me, it's just the amount of money that you spend, you're not getting those hits that you need. So I'm a big e-blast. I like dedicated e-blasts, because these are people who are opting in, that are saying, yeah, I want to receive content from you. I want to know what you're promoting. Whether, again, it's third party, and I work with a lot of third party companies that will do e-blasts because, again, these are targeted audiences that are opting in and saying, yes, this isn't spam. I signed up. I want to receive discounts, newsletters, information about your shows that you guys are going to be having. So for me, I do a lot of digital. Yeah, Nancy.
Can you give me an example of a third party company? Because I have no idea what you're referring to.
Sure. Theater Mania, for example.
Okay.
So Theater Mania has a very nice Los Angeles-based e-blast list, a subscription list. So for X amount of dollars, I can blast out. Now, there's many other things that they offer. I can be digitally on their website. I could be just one of 3 shows. I could be the only show. So depending on your budget, you have a lot of options. And again, I'm capturing people that are in front of their computer all day, like most of us are on their phone. And they're saying, yeah, I want this. That's who I want to target, as opposed to everyone that's just going to pick up a public, nobody's picking up LA Weekly to see what's playing because they're going on their phone, they're going on the website. So that's where I want to be. So that's sort of an example of where I will start when I want to hit, like I talked about earlier, sort of my masses, my theater goers, my live event goers. Let me target them first. Come out and see another live event and see if this one interests you.
Have you guys been able to score interviews on our local radio stations like KPCC and KCRW and what have you like that? Has that worked?
I did one. I thought I was able to score an interview with KCRW. It was we did Midsummer Night's Dream. This was about 5 years ago. And it was just an interview live. And it was really great. I mean, it got us audience. But one of the things that was really cool is that they kept airing that as kind of like an advertisement, like throughout the whole run. I was like, I just heard you on the radio. And I'm like, what was it? And it's like, yeah, something you were. And I was like, wow, that's really cool, because they were just playing it. Like this is what's happening, and like, oh yeah, they cut out snippets of it. So that was really cool. It was really hard to get. I mean, like sometimes if I'm working at I do a lot of like we do youth programming, and we're not gonna. Sometimes it's hard to get a publicist, but we're able to find. You go to these websites, you find the email, and you just hit them and be like, hey, here's a press release. Here's that, and you might get that radio, but it's really hard. I mean, that's probably been the only time that's ever happened.
Yeah, I have not been able to, unfortunately, be able to get any of our wonderful cast or crew on any of those two. We because of our relationship with our publicist, we've been able to get on KPFK, Pacifica Radio. So Julio Martinez's Arts and Review program is usually really amenable to the theater audience, which is great. Yeah, as I say, I see you all nodding your heads there.
We literally did our cast. Yeah, we had a show open last night, and my cast was just on, and he was wonderful. So same.
Yeah, so we, that one we've been able to do I think we've been pretty consistent about getting interviews there this season, since this is the first season that for me personally, I've been working with DNC the whole year. So we've been able to consistently get interviews there. So yeah, Javi, great job getting that one.
I know.
Because I think that's one of the hard things about, I think, maybe producing in LA is just how interested our local media is in maybe more so film and television versus our local theater community, which is such a shame, because they're both just very active and have so much to offer. So yeah, great job, Javi.
My final question, then I'm going to look at the chat, and then we'll also take some other ones. Poster art in this day and age, still a good idea to have good poster art? What's effective, what's not? Any thoughts on that?
I think very much so. I mean, key art is critical no matter what medium you're in. Let's face it, right? Like that for me translates to theater, film, TV. Key art is critical. So yes.
Yeah. As a graphic designer, yes. I mean, I think it's, I mean, I still love picking up, you know, hardcover books because I love looking at that design or a magazine. Yeah, it's, I mean, for me, that's what I look at, you know, it's like, oh, what is this, right? It stands out. For example, with the Latino Theater Company, we have a company members that, you know, they've been on TV for years. And so with them, it's, we use them, like we have to, otherwise people are like, what, like the people that have been following for them for years, we're like, who's in this show, right? That's a company member. So it's like merging them in. There's a lot of theater companies that I follow that are very consistent, you know, like it matches their branding, and the entire season has this look and theme. And I think that with a lot of people, it stands out, and it, you know, it helps all across the board, especially with social media. And there's a lot of people out there, I mean, that will do it. I mean, I think and especially now, Canva or anything that you can get out there and support when again, like that same thing that we were talking about with, like, you might not have production photos until, you know,
until you actually have costumes on bodies,
you have to have
and
costumes, right? It's like, I just have to, like, get something that works, you know, and, you know, the graphic, you know, let them tell that story. So yes.
And yeah, Canva changed the game for us all. Definitely want to say, I think for folks that are maybe self-producing or producing in smaller ways, right, that you're not under a theater that has like a brand or in-house graphic designer. I think what's important, right, is being able to have, right, something that stands out, or at least something that is key to that, like quick information about what you're doing. But I also think what's probably most important, since we've been talking about how important the digital space is, make sure that your art is easily translatable to social media, easily translatable to any digital advertisement that you can do, because yeah, I think getting posters out there is great if you're trying to get a local audience to come to a theater that's either close to you or nearby, right? Like if there's a reason that the people in a certain area should come see your show, that getting all those print sizes right is great. But make sure that what you're putting out there looks good on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're doing TikTok or any of the sort of like more newer and younger social media models, like make sure that those specs and sizes you have like a list of that, because that will save you so much time. It will make your designs and all of your work look really great. And, you know, like Racquel was saying, you know, everyone is looking for something to do on their phone. And if your art stands out as something that looks really cool to go see, or something really engaging and compelling to actually get out of their house and go fill a theater, you know, as long as it's not, you know, make sure that it's something that is well presented in that space.
Indeed, indeed. Similar, and I will go backwards and get some of the earlier questions, but Julius just had a question. Have you guys ever taken ads out on Facebook, Twitter? Has it been cost effective?
100%.
Same.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Cool.
Everyone else is all in agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Your audience, if maybe you are not on Facebook, but everyone else is.
I'm on Facebook, but
yes.
And it's the same concept. You can target. Like specificity is the key when dealing with social media, because you could just keep narrowing down who you want to target. So in that regard, it's very cost effective and very specific.
It's
excellent.
It's very creepy, but very awesome as a marketer. I mean, you could literally, I mean, we do theme, city, neighborhood, zip code, people that have
Oh, you just cut out. There you go. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. You know, websites, people that have visited our websites, people that open our emails, all that stuff. You can target people, and they will see it. They will get a sponsored ad, and and Facebook and Instagram are connected, so those posts will also get there. And there's so many other things that you can do. I mean, it's maybe so people that like we're all mentioning it, like that have maybe they've been to your theater but haven't seen a play, all that stuff. I think it's okay. And some I think like $20 goes a very long way with that. You could just do a one target or one something. Yeah, it's very powerful.
And then he had a follow-up question, Julius did. Secondly, any social media platform that is particularly good to attract theater audiences, and which are not Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and so on. So which are better, which are not so, or does it matter?
I think it depends on how you use it and how your audience, how you have engaged with your audience on those platforms.
Meaning the theater and or the playwright?
The theater and or the playwright. Think about, I mean, I guess I can speak best to a theater since I operate under that umbrella mostly. I mean, Racquel could maybe speak more to like individuals themselves, but I would say, if I'm on Facebook, if I'm doing ads on Facebook, and I've definitely done more of the Facebook ads than Twitter ads, I will say that. I would say that with Facebook, there's such a wide there's so many types of content you could put out there. You can, if you put a post about an article that's really successful, you can put money into that and keep shooting that article to the top of all your followers, feeds and things like that. You can, target more of your followers. You can target folks outside of your followers. You can, as folks were saying, nail down essential topics that that someone is into that might be able to see your play. So I think that has been really helpful. Twitter is such a writer's medium. I feel like, playwrights and writers and folks that are just talking about media are on Twitter. I feel like that is such a space that people can and you can easily share links. You can easily share content that way. And so if you're a writer, get on Twitter and cultivate that following and engage with them and let them know right here, right now is when my work is going off. It's such a very right now type of feed. Everything is very instantaneous. So, you think about it that way. Pinterest is definitely, I think, way more conceptual. You would really have to conceive of the type of content you would want to put on Pinterest. And I feel like it might go a long way to get you followers that are interested in some of the broader things that you're doing, but I don't know if it's a right now, come see my show type of stuff.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go back to a question that Mona had, and I don't know if anybody on this particular panel, this is your jurisdiction. She wants to know how to get a subscription audience more receptive to new work. Any thoughts on that? Or you guys may already be dealing in a lot of new work, so it's not like I'm talking here to a community theater that's only doing A Christmas Carol and Dial M for Murder.
I think if they're already a subscriber, they're beyond interested in theater and they're just gonna want to support that work. And I think it's you can target those shows to them. Someone was asking, I think I saw it on a Facebook group, was saying, oh, I never really go see a show until I read a review, but now I'm doing the show and we have no audiences the first week. And it's Karma. It's like going, it's it's going in support. I mean, and there's, like we said, everything that we talked about, the publicist, all of this content, helps that. And even the process, right? You're explaining the workshop and stuff like that. I think if you're explaining the process, if us as marketers and the publicists do our job and we're able to get that, I think someone mentioned about synopsis and stuff like that. If we're able to really share what the theme and the story well, then people were just wow, I'm really interested in this. And then get a little video and photos and they'll come see it beyond of what it is. And that graphic, right? The poster.
I'm actually going to go ahead and read the question you referred to. It's from my buddy Greg here with the ALAP group. Do you ever consult on the logline synopsis of a play? Maybe he's talking about consulting with the writer. Any tips about what kinds of language might be more effective in sticking in the minds of potential audiences? Things you've learned about that?
Yeah, I often will be working with my client and the graphic designer on the key art, and you just sometimes you just feel it and you go, this needs a log line. And then we'll all work together on what that is, because it's sort of like the bow that ties it together. Not all shows need it, but often shows do need it. And then once it's on there, you go, exactly. Now it's wrapped up, and it helps bridge that gap from like the key art and what the show is. So I always say, of course, you want to try to keep it simple, but you also kind of want to use log line. You want to use, what am I trying to say? Sorry. I find that you don't want to be so unique in the log line. That's an opportunity to use things that's quick, easy, and things that people will go, oh, okay, I know what this is. Okay, got it. Like, don't try to throw the kitchen and the kitchen sink and the oven and the stove in your graphic and your log line. Because often I feel that playwrights are like, oh, but this graphic is lovely, but it doesn't incorporate the 7 other themes that are also in the show. Well, it shouldn't, because then no one's going to understand the key art. So I feel like the log line helps us bridge that gap, but it also should be bold and clean and simple and something that's very easily digestible, like a nice little bite of something. And so anyway.
I actually have a funny story where I learned something important. Back in college, we did a production of Tom Stoppard's, I think it was called Jumpers. And there are some gymnastics stuff in it. That is not the bulk of the play. The bulk of the play is a lot of Tom Stoppard, very dense dialogue, okay? But we used footage of the gymnastics stuff as part of our ad campaign. And people were completely misled, and they came to see the play and they were so angry and disappointed. And that was a lesson for me, man. You do not want to mislead the audience into what they're getting into. So it's my tip for today.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, we have, huh?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Patricia has a question for Racquel. Are the plays you produce done at the Zephyr, the Lounge, or on Melrose? Can they be in any space? What is a typical timeline to get a new work produced?
Sure. All of my theaters are rental houses. So no, I work at all the rental houses around town. Again, the Odyssey, the Zephyr, which is mine, the lounges, the Hudson. We had a show open last night at the Hudson. So I wear multiple hats, obviously, as a producer. I also, of course, do the marketing, but I own a couple performance venues. But no, they are strictly rental houses, just like any, and other people produce there as well. So no, I produce at all of the theaters around town. And again, I specialize in 100-seat and under. So all of the 100-seat and under typically. I've done a little bit at the Kirk Douglas, but mainly 99 and under. As far as timeline, I would say comfortably 3 to 4 months pre-production is about right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. You can go longer. You're just going to have more pockets of dead time, but you can absolutely go longer. But 3 to 4 months is pretty typical.
Awesome. Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm going to switch my view to show non-video participants. You can either put a question in the chat or you can raise your hand on the video. We got a few minutes left. Don't want to leave anybody out. Anything we didn't cover? We have a thank you. Thank you is good. Thank you is wonderful. Anyone else? I'm going to switch to page 2. Any hands up? No hands up over there. All right. Well, I think this is going to be it then. Thank you very, very much for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate it. Got some more thank yous. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Anything that like we didn't cover and you're like, oh my God, we should have talked about that.
Go see each other's plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's like
Be good
47
supporters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I can give you all a promo code to my show. Speaking
Yeah.
of, give you a discount. So
And I think,
absolutely.
yeah. And I think there was a question you had, Nancy, that was, what can playwrights do if you're being produced by a theater? And I would say, don't be shy about reaching out to the marketing person. I know we're all real busy, but I think don't be shy about reaching out to the marketing person and, maybe sitting down and having a chat with them if they haven't reached out to you, to make sure that you're all on the same page about, the content of the play and how things are, being talked about and how things are being approached. Right. And also, of course, understand, right, that if you have ideas, talk them through with them. We may not always be able to get to everything because sometimes, right, as you were saying, oh, there's all this other stuff we want to cover. And then, but also those are maybe things that are helpful for us to understand, okay, maybe there's this audience we can go after. There's this audience we can go after, or if you have a connection to some other community or group that we can hopefully target and bring them in, it's definitely worth it to have a conversation with a marketing person if you are being produced by a theater. So don't be shy. We don't bite. We're usually in the same boat as you.
I can tell another quick, not a horror story, but boy, it was an important lesson. Years ago, I had a play that was going to be produced by my writers group, and then we had some friction, but we still produced it. And we had a guy, I thought he was doing marketing. Guess what? He was doing publicity, and I didn't understand that. And he did the thing where he got some reviewers to come, but he did literally no marketing. So we didn't have any marketing.
Right. Yeah. And it
Holy
also depends
cow.
on the type of theater too. Smaller theaters, sometimes it's your artistic director that's doing the marketing, right? Learn, whoever you're being produced with, get a sense of what that administrative structure is, because you generally never know unless it's like a bigger theater and clearly they have everybody under one roof. But and then again, Racquel fills so many different, spaces for folks. Javi and I do a lot of different things, but sometimes we're lucky enough we get to hire on somebody to do the thing that we're just avoiding in our inbox. So, right, if you're being produced by a theater, get a sense of the size and scale and who's doing what, because right, as you were saying, someone might be bringing in a reviewer, but they're not the ones putting the ads out. They're not the ones doing the design or, or getting any of the other content out. So if there's something you want to see for the promotion of your play, talk to your administrative team, and hopefully there's somebody that's doing that job that can help you realize what you want to see to bring in the folks. So
Absolutely. Well, this has been lovely. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you on behalf of ALAP. We really appreciate it, you guys. And I will be coming to see shows at y'all's theaters, and let's all stay in touch. All right.
Thank you, Nancy, for inviting us. And
yes,
thank you for the panel today.
Thanks, Nancy, and everyone at ALAP. It's been a pleasure.
Right on,
Great to meet the panelists as well.
I was going to say, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
All right, at 3:15, we'll be watching some plays here on Zoom.
Yay.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.